We hadn't planned to go far. That was the mistake. My mother spotted the chanterelles first, golden curls shining through leaf litter like coins. My father, a methodical man, paced off a grid with the confidence of someone who believes pine trunks and mossy boulders are as obedient as fence posts. My younger sister, Anya, skipped between stumps and hummed the tune our grandfather used to whistle when he told us never to wander from sight. I said, "I'll circle back and check the ridge," because from the ridge you could see the car, the road, the safe line of gray. I took 36 steps, maybe 40. I remember thinking, don't step on the capped mushrooms. Old ones spit spores when you crush them, and the forest hates that. I remember the sound of a woodpecker like dropped nails. I remember looking over my shoulder to keep the family in view, seeing my father's blue jacket through spruce branches. Then I didn't. There's a kind of quiet that feels intentional, as if the trees are holding their breath. The air did that as the light shifted, a small, unimportant cloud slipping over the sun. I called out. No answer. I laughed and called again, louder, confident, pretending I wasn't listening for that exact high teasing note of Anya's hum. I took 10 steps back, then 20. Forward felt like backward. Backward felt like nothing at all. The ridge was a suggestion smudged into the horizon, and the rise under my boots could have been any small hill in any direction. I found a path. It looked used. A faint trough in the needles, a place where boots had scuffed away lichens. Pine resin sweetened the air. If I followed this track, I reasoned, I'd hit the main trail or the clearing where my father parked. I walked 5 minutes, 10. The path thinned and braided, splitting into 2 pale threads that made a wishbone between saplings. I chose left. The trees thickened. The thread loosened into scattered prints, some human, some not. When my phone found no signal, it still showed the time. That was comforting. 14:17, plenty of daylight. I marked a tree with my pocket knife, a shallow V, and then marked another 15 paces on, and then another, because forward is only forward if you can reverse it. 20 minutes later, I saw my own first V again, right where I didn't expect it. I had not turned around. The woods had. I tried whistling our grandfather's tune. It sounded wrong, bouncing between trunks, the echoes overlapping like voices trying to speak over each other. I told myself the terrain was playing tricks. I kept my eyes level, picked a distant birch like a lighthouse, and walked straight for it. I reached it, touched its paper-smooth bark, and looked up to find more birches, dizzying, identical, a wallpaper of pale columns. At 16:03, the cold began its patient campaign. Autumn in this forest hides winter in its pockets. Shadowed dips where frost lingered even in the morning, damp gullies that breathed out chilled mist. I pictured my family back at the car, confused, calling my name, then angry, then worried. I held onto that thread, the inevitability of being found, like a lifeline. By 1741, the light thinned into something the color of weak tea. I stumbled into a clearing ringed by mushrooms, hundreds of them, caps tight like small fists, white and yellow, and a red so glossy it looked lacquered. Some were classic fairy tale toadstools. Others had frilled skirts and gills like gossamer pages. I didn't step inside the ring. Even without old stories, it felt like a rule you shouldn't break. I shouted until my throat burned. The forest listened and gave me nothing back. Then, from far off, a whistle, 2 notes, jaunty and familiar as bone. I turned so fast I nearly tripped into the ring. "Anya," I called, and the pines answered with soft needles falling like rain. The whistle came again, closer this time, and with it a rustle from the mushrooms, a delicate sound like pages turning. I told myself the wind made that sound. The wind had to. I took a single step backward, and my heels sank into something soft. I didn't look. I ran away from the ring toward the whistle, because it was a human thing, and I needed a human thing more than I needed anything. The whistle stopped. The forest reset, and all the trees were strangers. If you were me, would you have stepped into the mushroom ring to leave a mark? Or kept running toward the sound that seemed to know your name? The dark comes faster in the woods than it does anywhere else. It seeps upward from the ground, a kind of reverse drowning. I felt it licking at my ankles as I stumbled between roots, trying to follow where I thought the whistle had come from. My breath came out in clouds. Every tree looked the same, each a copy of the last, tall, narrow, and indifferent. At some point, I realized I was following something, not someone. The whistle wasn't echoing, it was leading. Every time I turned toward it, it slipped a few meters farther away, like it was teasing me, luring me. But if I stopped, it stopped too. When I took another step, it started again. By 1830, it was almost too dark to see. I had no flashlight, just my phone, and I didn't want to waste the battery. The little light it gave was weak, a trembling circle that made the shadows seem alive. I thought about shouting again, but decided against it. The silence in that place wasn't empty. It was full of listening things. Then I saw the cabin. It sat in a hollow between mossy rocks, half swallowed by the forest. The roof sagged, but smoke rose lazily from a tin chimney. Relief flooded through me so hard I laughed. Actually laughed. Civilization. Warmth. People. The door was open just a crack. I called out, "Hello? I'm lost. Please, can you help me?" No answer. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of pine pitch and old smoke. A fire burned low in a stone hearth, throwing orange light on the rough-hewn walls. On a table sat a bowl of water, a loaf of bread gone hard, and a knife with a handle worn smooth by use. My heart jumped at the sight of food, but something about the way the bread was placed, centered, careful, untouched, made me hesitate. It felt like a setup, like whoever lived here was coming back soon. I looked around. The cabin had one small bed covered in a patchwork quilt, a shelf lined with jars, and an old coat hanging on a peg. Everything was neat. Too neat for a hunter's shack. Then came that sound again, whistling. Not outside this time, but behind me. I turned. The door was still ajar, but the darkness beyond it looked thicker now, like it was solid. The whistling was right there on the other side. 2 short notes. Pause. Then 2 again. My phone buzzed suddenly in my pocket, making me jump. New message. I didn't have service. How could I? The message was blank, except for a single character. That stupid little smile made my skin crawl. I backed toward the fire, clutching the knife without even thinking. Then the whistling stopped, and I realized what I had been hearing wasn't air through lips. It was air through holes, like something breathing through a cracked mask. A shape leaned in the doorway, too tall for a person. Branched, thin arms, the glint of something pale where a face should be. My fingers went numb. The fire popped, and for a heartbeat, the thing's shadow flickered across the opposite wall. It wasn't human. The head was wrong, stretched, narrow, like bark peeled from a tree trunk. I bolted through the side window before I could think. Glass and splinters cut my hands, but the cold air outside was a gift. I didn't stop running until the cabin light was gone behind me. When I finally slowed, gasping, I realized I'd dropped my phone, my only light, my only map. The forest was endless blackness now. I pressed my bleeding hands to my chest, trying to hear past the hammering of my heart. The whistling hadn't followed me. At least, not yet. I found a hollow under a fallen tree and crawled in. The soil was damp and smelled of rot, but it was shelter. I lay there shivering, counting the seconds. Hours maybe passed. Somewhere in the distance something screamed, long and wet and human. Or it wanted to sound human. Then closer, I heard soft steps crunching leaves. They stopped right outside my hiding place. And then, the whistle again. Hook. The next morning, when I finally dared to crawl out, I found footprints circling the tree, bare, narrow, and facing both directions at once. When dawn came, it didn't feel like morning. The forest light was cold and metallic, bleeding sideways through mist that hovered knee-high. I hadn't really slept, just drifted in and out of feverish dreams where the whistle never stopped. When I finally forced myself out from under the fallen tree, my muscles trembled with exhaustion. That's when I saw them, the footprints. At first glance, they looked like human prints, bare feet, heel to toe. But when I leaned closer, I saw it. The same set of toes appeared at both ends of each print, as if whatever made them walked both forward and backward at the same time. They circled my hiding place, looping around twice, then vanished into the underbrush. I don't remember deciding to move, but I was walking before I knew it. The forest was silent again, except for a faint dripping somewhere far off, like rain falling from leaves. My throat was raw, and every breath felt like swallowing ice. Hunger twisted through me, but I had nothing left in my pockets except the small pocket knife. By noon, I found a creek. The water looked clear, almost too clear. I dropped to my knees and drank greedily, but when I looked into the surface, I saw movement, ripples spreading against the current. Something under the water was breathing. I stumbled back, wiping my mouth, and saw my reflection flicker. For a second, my face wasn't my face. It looked pale, hollow, and wrong, like bark had grown over my skin. I told myself it was just exhaustion, hallucination, dehydration. But when I reached into the creek to splash my face, the water felt warm. That's when I heard voices. "Hello?" I called, desperate. It sounded like a woman humming somewhere ahead, a tune I recognized, Anya's tune. I crashed through the ferns, stumbling over roots, following that sound like a rope in the dark. The humming grew clearer, echoing softly through the mist. Then I saw her, or thought I did. A figure standing between two birches, her hair catching the weak sunlight. "Anya!" I shouted. The figure tilted its head, slowly, too slowly. The humming stopped. When I stepped closer, it turned away, drifting deeper between the trees, and I realized it wasn't walking, it was gliding. I ran after it anyway, branches whipping my face because reason meant nothing compared to hope. The figure disappeared around a bend, and I burst into a clearing I didn't recognize. In the middle stood a massive oak, roots coiling out like serpents. Something hung from its lowest branch, a bundle wrapped in cloth. My stomach dropped. The air smelled faintly of smoke and iron. I approached carefully. The bundle was a coat, my father's blue jacket. It was ripped down one sleeve, streaked with mud or blood. I touched it, and something fell from the pocket. A small silver whistle, the kind Anya used to wear on her keychain. I picked it up, fingers trembling. When I blew on it, no sound came out. But the forest reacted anyway. Every leaf seemed to shiver. Then, from somewhere behind me, the same two-note whistle answered. I froze. It wasn't imagination. It was real, and it was close. I dropped the whistle and ran again, blind panic driving me. My lungs burned. My legs ached. I didn't care where I went anymore, as long as it was away. When I finally collapsed, the forest had changed again. The trees grew closer together, their trunks darker, twisted like something had melted and reformed them. Moss hung from the branches in strings. I sat there shaking, trying to catch my breath, when I noticed something carved into the nearest trunk, a crude V shape, my mark. I had been here before. Somehow, I had circled back. The whistle came again, closer now, from above. I looked up and saw something perched in the branches. It was crouched like a person, but too long, too thin, its limbs wrapped around the trunk. Its face, if it had one, was covered by what looked like bark fused to flesh. From the cracks, a faint light pulsed, like the glow of worms under soil. It tilted its head, and I swear I saw its chest rise and fall in rhythm with mine. Then, in a voice that scraped like wind through dead leaves, it said my name. Hook. I ran until I couldn't feel my feet, but even then, I kept hearing it whisper, "Come back. You left something in the trees." I didn't look back. I couldn't. My legs moved on their own, half numb, half burning, tearing through roots and thorns. The forest blurred into a smear of gray and green. Every time I thought I'd lost it, a branch cracked behind me, or that voice breathed my name again, soft, coaxing, curious. By the time the sun began to fade, I found a ridge and forced myself to climb it. The incline was brutal, slick with moss, but from the top, I hoped I'd finally see something, anything, that wasn't endless trees. Instead, the forest stretched forever. Only one thing broke the pattern, smoke rising from somewhere far below. A campfire. Human. Hope. I slid down the slope, half falling, half running, my body shaking with adrenaline. As I drew closer, I began to hear voices, 2, maybe 3. I called out hoarse, "Hello, please, help me." The voices went silent. I froze, listening. The forest exhaled. Then one of the voices answered, but not quite right. Too calm, too precise. "Come closer," it said. There was something about the way it spoke. Each word just a little too spaced out, like someone copying speech rather than creating it. Still, the light of the fire drew me. My body screamed for warmth, for safety. I stepped into the clearing. There were 3 figures sitting around the fire. They didn't look up when I entered. Their clothes were wrong, ripped, decades out of fashion, coated with dirt. One stirred the flames with a stick. Another held something between their hands, rocking slightly. I thought they might be hunters, or lost like me. "Hey," I said, trying to sound steady. I've been out here for days. I'm lost." The one with the stick turned, slowly. Their face was slack, pale, their eyes cloudy, as if made of wax. And then the smell hit me. Wet soil, rot. They weren't people, or at least they weren't alive. I stumbled backward, but one of them raised a trembling hand and pointed past me. "It's behind you," it whispered. I turned. The trees behind me had changed. Their trunks bent inward, forming a rough circle around the fire. Hanging from their lowest branches were shapes, like people wrapped tight in bark, heads tilted downward, faces pressed out from under the surface, frozen mid-scream. And then the whistling began again. This time, it came from everywhere, a chorus rising and falling in broken rhythm. The fire guttered. The figures by the flames stood as one and stepped forward, jerky and wrong, as if pulled by invisible strings. I bolted into the dark. Branches clawed at me. I didn't know which way I was going anymore. My body was running on panic alone. I tripped over a root and hit the ground hard, my shoulder exploding with pain. When I looked up, the world had changed again. I was in a field, or what used to be one. Tall, dead grass waved in a wind I couldn't feel. The sky was dim and colorless. In the distance, a wooden cross stood crooked, half buried in the earth. As I limped closer, I saw there was something nailed to it, small, like a child's toy. A rag doll. Its button eyes were mismatched. One blue, one brown. The same colors as Anya's. My throat closed. My mind refused to connect the dots, but I already knew this forest wasn't just alive. It remembered. It collected things, people, voices. That's when I heard another sound, faint but distinct. A ringtone. My ringtone. I turned slowly. There, half buried in the dirt, was my phone, the same one I dropped by the cabin. Its screen was cracked but still glowing. The message icon blinked again. One new message. I opened it. The same blank message appeared, but this time, below the smiley face, a line of text had been added. Follow the trail back. We're waiting. As I stared, muddy footprints began appearing in the grass ahead of me, one after another, as if pressed by invisible feet. They led toward the dark edge of the forest again, and though every part of me screamed not to, I followed, because I couldn't shake the thought that maybe, just maybe, my family was waiting at the end. Hook. But the deeper I followed those prints, the more I realized something horrifying. They weren't leading away from me. They were walking toward me. At first, I told myself I was imagining it. The footprints seemed to form ahead of me, but maybe it was wind pushing leaves, or my tired mind playing tricks. But as I watched, another print sank into the soft dirt, heel first, then the toes, pressing down as if by an unseen weight. And they were coming closer. I froze. The forest waited. I could almost hear it breathing. Then, the phone in my hand buzzed again. New message. Don't run. You'll make it angry. The phone's light flickered, and for an instant, my reflection in the screen didn't look like me. It smiled, wide and wrong, though my lips didn't move. That was enough. I dropped the phone and turned, running back into the trees. I didn't care about the path anymore. I didn't care where I ended up. All I wanted was distance between me and those invisible steps. The forest swallowed me whole. Branches tore my clothes. My breath came in ragged gasps. Then I tripped again, falling onto something solid, flat wood, half covered by moss. When I brushed it off, I realized it was a signpost, tilted, the letters barely visible through the grime. Ravenhollow trailhead, 2.4 kilometers. Relief hit me like a drug. A trailhead meant roads. Roads meant rescue. I could make it. I had to. But then I noticed something carved beneath the lettering. Deeper, older scratches, uneven but deliberate. They don't let you leave. The cold came back then, sharp and immediate. I looked down the direction the sign pointed and saw something moving between the trees. At first, I thought it was fog, but it wasn't. It was hundreds of tiny floating threads, white and thin, drifting together like spider silk. They shimmered faintly, catching the dim light. As I stared, they began weaving themselves into shapes, hands, faces, torsos. They looked human. I stumbled backward, but the threads followed, coiling and reforming into a figure, a woman's outline, her hair flowing like smoke. Her mouth opened, and though her lips didn't move, I heard a whisper, "Hungry." The threads reached for me. I slashed at them with my knife, but they only wrapped around the blade, pulling tighter. When they touched my skin, they burned cold, like frostbite in an instant. I screamed and tore free, bolting toward the direction the sign had pointed. The forest fought me every step. Roots snagged my feet, branches whipped across my face, and then, through the noise, I heard it again, the whistle. Only now it wasn't 2 notes. It was the same 4 tones of Anya's laugh, slowed and warped. I almost stopped. Almost. Because for a heartbeat, I could have sworn I saw her again ahead of me, barefoot, hair tangled, smiling faintly. "Come on," she said, her voice distant, echoing strangely. "You're so close." I wanted to believe her. My whole body wanted to. But her shadow was wrong. It didn't touch the ground. I kept moving. The trees thinned, and I stumbled into another clearing. This one was different. Someone had been here recently. There were tents, 3 of them, small and battered, their fabric flapping faintly in the cold wind. A fire pit sat in the center, ringed by stones, ashes still faintly warm. People. Please, let there be people. "Hello?" I called out. "Is anyone here?" No answer. I unzipped the first tent. Empty sleeping bag, a half-eaten can of beans, a photo lying on the ground, 3 hikers smiling in front of a trail sign. The same Ravenhollow sign I'd just seen. The photo was smeared with something dark, and one of the faces had been scratched out. The second tent was worse. Inside, the walls were covered with carvings, hundreds of small marks etched into the fabric from the inside. Tallies. Dozens, then hundreds, and beneath them, written in what looked like charcoal, "If you hear it whistle, hide your eyes." Something rustled behind me. I turned, knife raised, but it wasn't the whistling thing this time. It was movement inside the third tent, slow, careful, like something shifting under a blanket. "Hello?" My voice cracked. The zipper slid down, inch by inch on its own, and then something crawled out. At first, I thought it was a person, someone hurt, dragging themselves toward me, but the way it moved, bent, spider-like, jerking, made my stomach drop. Its skin was gray, stretched tight, its fingers long and pointed like twigs, and where its eyes should have been were 2 small holes, round and empty. It tilted its head toward me, sniffed the air, and then smiled. It had no lips, only teeth. "Hook," the thing whispered in a voice like broken glass. "You shouldn't have followed the trail." I stumbled backward, tripping over a stone. The thing from the tent crawled closer, its limbs bending wrong, elbows jutting the wrong direction. When it moved, its bones cracked like dry branches. Every sound it made seemed to echo a little too long, like the forest was repeating it. "Stay back," I shouted, waving the knife. The thing stopped. It tilted its head again, first one way, then the other, and I realized with horror that it was listening to the forest behind me, not to me, as if something bigger was directing it. A sound rippled through the trees, not the whistle this time, something lower, a heartbeat, the rhythm of the earth itself. Thump, thump, thump. The thing flinched at each pulse, as though being given orders. Then it lunged. I swung wildly, the blade slicing through its arm. The cut didn't bleed. Instead, strands of pale fungus spilled out, writhing like worms. The thing shrieked, a wet, bubbling sound, and collapsed, twitching. Its body began to crumble, breaking apart into a pile of soft, rotted material. Within seconds, nothing was left but a few scraps of torn fabric. The heartbeat stopped. Silence fell so heavy it hurt my ears. I stumbled to the fire pit, grabbing a charred branch to use as a torch. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. The smell of rot clung to me. Around the clearing, the forest seemed to lean closer, as if it had been watching through the trunks the whole time. On the ground near the ruined tent was a notebook, its cover warped by damp. I opened it with trembling fingers. The first few pages were ruined, but halfway through, I found legible handwriting. Day 5. Lost the main trail again. Heard whistling last night. Thought it was the others, but the sound comes from everywhere. Day 7. Found strange cocoons in the trees. Something inside them still moves. Day 9. It takes their voices. When one of us disappears, we hear them calling afterward, but it isn't them. Day 10. If anyone finds this, don't eat the mushrooms. They're not food. They're listening. My stomach turned. I remembered the ring of mushrooms from my first night, the way they'd seemed to shift when the wind moved. I remembered the thing's arm bursting into fungal threads. The connections clicked together like bones snapping into place. This wasn't just a forest. It was alive, in the worst possible way. A single breathing organism wearing trees like skin, and the things moving within it were its children, or its messengers. I didn't wait to think anymore. I needed to get out. I followed the faint path that led away from the camp, heading toward what I hoped was north. The air was colder now, sharper. Every few steps, I heard something crunch behind me, but when I turned, there was nothing. Hours passed. My torch burned low. Then, finally, I saw a light ahead, pale and flickering. I stumbled toward it, half believing it was just another hallucination. It wasn't. It was a lantern hanging from a tree branch. Beneath it, a man sat slumped against the trunk, wrapped in a coat that looked military. His face was hidden by shadow, but when I called out, he stirred. "Hey," I said, breathless. "Are you okay? Please, I'm lost." The man lifted his head slowly. His skin looked gray, dry as paper. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice thin. "It doesn't like when you run." "Who doesn't?" I asked. "The hollow one," he whispered. "It found you already." He pointed past me with a trembling hand. I turned, and there it was again, standing among the trees. The same long-limbed shape I'd seen near the cabin, its head cocked, the cracks in its face glowing faintly. The man grabbed my sleeve. "It remembers everyone it touches. Don't let it take your name." Before I could ask what that meant, his grip went slack. His head fell forward, and I saw that the side of his neck was hollow, eaten through by white tendrils. The lantern flickered and died. The forest exhaled again. Behind me, that whistle rose. 2 tones, then 3, then a low hum that seemed to vibrate inside my skull. The hollow one began to move, slow but certain, stepping between the trees like it had all the time in the world. I ran. Branches snapped, and the forest seemed to rearrange itself, trying to herd me. The whistle grew louder, closer, until it wasn't coming from behind anymore. It was coming from inside my head. Then, suddenly, I burst through the tree line and saw a dirt road. I almost cried. Civilization, escape. But when I turned to look back at the forest, it was gone. The trees were there, yes, but still silent, ordinary. The mist had lifted. Birds were singing. It was like none of it had ever happened. My legs gave out. I sat on the gravel, shaking, staring at the tree line. The world looked normal again, until my phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't have it anymore. I'd dropped it days ago, but it buzzed again. Slowly, I reached into my jacket. The phone was there, screen cracked, faintly glowing. A new message. Welcome back to Ravenhollow. Hook. When I looked up, the trees across the road had shifted again, forming a perfect ring. And inside that ring, something was waiting. The forest stared back at me. That's the only way I can describe it. The trees on the far side of the road were motionless, yet I could feel them watching. The ring they formed was perfect, too perfect, each trunk evenly spaced, roots intertwining in a seamless loop. At its center, the ground was bare, as if nothing dared to grow there. I should have run. I should have kept to the road, found help, something. But I couldn't move. My legs were heavy, my breath shallow. The air on this side of the road felt different, thin, hollow, like stepping too close to the edge of a cliff. Then the phone buzzed again in my hand, the same cracked screen, the same faint glow. One new message. It's waiting for you. Don't make it angry. My hands went cold. Before I could drop the phone, a sound came from inside the ring, a low hum, deep and steady. The air seemed to vibrate. Dust and ash lifted from the ground, swirling. And then something stepped forward. It wasn't tall this time, not like the hollow one. This shape was smaller, wrapped in what looked like bark and moss, its form vaguely human. It moved awkwardly, one leg dragging behind, but as it drew closer, I saw its face. It was my father, or at least it looked like him. The same features, the same short beard, even the same jacket I'd seen hanging from the oak tree. But his eyes were empty sockets, packed with white fungus. "Dad," I whispered. He tilted his head, as if the word confused him. Then he opened his mouth. The sound that came out wasn't a voice, it was the forest itself. Leaves rustling, wood creaking, a slow, endless whisper. "Stay," it said, through 100 tiny echoes. "Stay with us." Behind him, more figures emerged from the trees, shapes that wore the outlines of people I knew. My mother, Anya, the hikers from the photo, their bodies blended into the bark, their skin pale as birch. The smell of decay thickened the air. I took a step back onto the road. "You're not real," I said. "You're not them." The figure that wore my sister's face tilted its head. When she spoke, her voice was almost perfect, except for the faint delay, like two recordings playing out of sync. "Don't leave us again." I turned and ran. The road twisted between the trees, endless. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, matching the rhythm that still pulsed faintly from the woods behind me. The phone buzzed again and again, each vibration like a nerve spasm in my hand. "Don't run. Come back. You can't leave." I threw it into the ditch. It didn't stop buzzing. Minutes or hours, I couldn't tell, passed before I saw something ahead. A light. Not the sickly orange of fire, but harsh, white, artificial. A headlamp. A voice called out, faint but real this time. "Hey, over here." I stumbled toward it, waving my arms, sobbing with relief. Two men in bright jackets ran toward me, their radios crackling. Search and rescue. Real people. They caught me before I fell. "Easy," one of them said. "You're safe now. We've been looking for you for days." Days. I wanted to tell them about the forest, the cabin, the thing that called my name. But my throat locked up. My words came out broken. They wrapped a blanket around me, gave me water, asked simple questions. "Were you alone?" "No," I managed. "My family. They were with me. I lost them." The men exchanged a look. One of them took a slow breath. We didn't find anyone else, but we'll keep searching. You just rest, okay? I nodded, but deep down, I knew. The forest didn't lose people, it kept them. They led me toward their truck parked a little down the road. As I climbed inside, one of the rescuers turned back toward the woods. Strange, he said. You see that? The other looked. See what? That circle of trees. I froze. The circle was still there, just visible in the fading light. Perfect. Silent. Waiting. Probably natural, the other man said. You get weird formations out here sometimes. But the first rescuer didn't move. He stepped closer to the tree line, squinting. Hold on, he murmured. Is that someone standing in there? The forest was too dark to see clearly, but I caught the faintest flash of white. Then, softly, faintly, the whistle began again. Both men froze. You hear that? Yeah, the other said. Sounds like... Before he could finish, the one nearest the trees took another step forward. His hand lifted as if reaching for something unseen. Hey, I shouted from the truck, but my voice felt far away. Don't! He turned to look at me, and his face was blank, completely smooth. No eyes, no mouth. Then he was gone. Just gone. No movement, no sound. 1 second he was there. The next, the circle was empty again. The other rescuer screamed and scrambled into the driver's seat, slamming the door. What was that? I couldn't answer. The trees were whispering again, and between the rustles I could almost make out words. Welcome home. We drove for what felt like hours before the forest thinned and lights appeared in the distance. A ranger station. The man beside me was shaking so hard he could barely steer. But when we finally stopped and I looked back down the road, the circle of trees was still visible in the distance, closer than it should have been. And in the back seat of the truck, the phone I'd thrown away was sitting beside me. Screen cracked, still glowing faintly. New message. One more night. Hook. When I looked up, I realized the truck wasn't moving anymore, and neither was the driver. His head had turned completely around, facing the forest. The truck's engine still idled, a low hum that barely masked the silence outside. The man behind the wheel sat rigid, hands locked on the steering wheel. Slowly, the headlamp's glow from the dash traced across his face, or what was left of it. His head was twisted backward, the neck taut, like something had turned it by hand. His eyes were open, staring into the back seat. At first, I couldn't move. Then, instinct took over. I lunged for the door, spilling out into the cold air. My legs barely held me. The station lights that had seemed so close a moment ago were gone, swallowed by fog that hadn't been there before. The road behind me stretched endlessly, dark and wet, reflecting faint shapes that shifted when I tried to focus on them. My breath came in quick bursts. You're not real, I whispered to myself. You're not real. You're not... The truck door slammed shut on its own. The sound echoed unnaturally, reverberating from every direction. Then, faintly at first, came the whistle. The same 2 notes, then 3, repeating from somewhere behind the fog. I ran. I didn't know where I was going. Just forward, always forward. The road turned to dirt beneath my shoes. The fog thickened, pressing close, damp and warm. I could feel the forest again, though I couldn't see it yet. The scent of earth and decay filled my lungs. Somewhere ahead, a lantern flickered. I slowed, cautious, approaching. It hung above a wooden sign, one I had already seen. Ravenhollow Trailhead 2.4. kilometers. My heart stopped. No, it wasn't possible. I had left this place. I'd found the road, the rescuers, the truck. I'd escaped, but the forest doesn't let you leave. The mist parted just enough for me to see shapes moving among the trees again, figures walking slowly, rhythmically, their steps matching the pulse that had started deep beneath my feet. Thump, thump, thump. Their faces were hidden by bark, their mouths packed with moss, and all of them were humming. I stumbled backward, tripping over the roots that crept across the road. My hand brushed something cold and metal. The phone, still cracked, still glowing. One new message. You left us. Come finish what you started. I didn't want to read more, but the text kept changing, the words shifting as if being rewritten by something watching. You belong here now. From the forest edge, one of the shapes stepped forward. It was wearing my clothes, the same jacket, same torn jeans, same cut across the palm. When it smiled, I saw my own teeth. No. It tilted its head, eyes blank but moving like they could see. Then, in my own voice, it said, "You can rest now. The forest forgives you." I backed away. My doppelganger followed, step for step, whispering my words before I spoke them. Every motion mirrored. When I lifted my hand, it did too. But I realized it wasn't mimicking me. It was leading me. Behind it, the hollow one appeared again. The cracks across its face glowed faintly, and through them I saw movement, tiny threads writhing like roots under skin. All the whispers from the trees blended into one voice. Stay, feed, grow. The air thickened. My lungs burned. I couldn't breathe. I turned and ran into the fog, into anywhere that wasn't here. The forest bent around me, warping the road into roots, the sky into canopy. The darkness seemed alive, pulsing in time with my heartbeat. And then, through the haze, I saw a flicker of firelight. A cabin. The same one from before. I fell to my knees, sobbing. Somehow, impossibly, I was back where it all started. The door was open again, smoke rising lazily from the chimney. I didn't want to go inside, but behind me, the forest groaned, thousands of creaking voices merging into one. Inside, they said. Finish it. I stepped into the cabin. The fire burned steadily in the hearth. On the table lay the same loaf of bread, the same bowl of water, untouched. Only now there were 4 plates, 4 sets of utensils, for my family. And then I saw them, sitting at the table. My father's eyes turned toward me first, then my mother's. Anya's small hands clutched the silver whistle that still gleamed between her fingers. None of them moved. None of them breathed. But when I blinked, they were standing, their faces cracked like old bark, eyes glowing faintly from within. My mother spoke first. Her voice split into 2 tones, overlapping. You made it back. I stumbled back, shaking my head. You're not them. Anya smiled, soft and broken. You left us. You didn't listen to the forest. Her voice changed halfway through the sentence, slipping into a pitch that wasn't human. The whistle fell from her hand and hit the floor, but the sound that came from it wasn't a note. It was laughter. My father moved closer. The roots on the cabin floor writhed, wrapping around his ankles. The forest doesn't take, it trades, he said. You came back. You're the offering now. The fire flared green, sparks spiraling up into the rafters. The smell of rot and earth filled the room. I tried to run, but the roots had already reached me, curling around my legs. The wood groaned, and I heard the forest speaking again through the cracks in the walls. Welcome back to Ravenhollow. Hook. As the roots dragged me toward the fire, I realized something terrifying. The trees outside were no longer whispering my name. They were whispering with it. The floorboards gave way beneath me, the roots tightening around my ankles until I felt bone grind. Heat from the green fire seared the air. Smoke filled the cabin like a living thing. Every heartbeat echoed through the walls. My family shapes stood motionless, watching. Their faces had cracked completely open now, hollow cavities threaded with pale vines. "Let me go," I shouted, hacking at the roots with my pocket knife. Each cut bled a dark sap that hissed on the floor, and the smell of it was wrong, sweet and metallic, like rust mixed with flowers. Anya tilted her head. "You already belong," she said in that twin-pitched voice. "You breathed it in. You drank the water." I remembered the creek, the warmth of the water that wasn't supposed to be warm, the reflection that wasn't mine. A sick certainty spread through me. The forest had been inside me since the first day. The fire dimmed to a dull glow. The roots dragged me across the floor until my hand brushed the edge of the hearthstone. Beneath the ash, I felt a symbol carved into the stone, a ring of trees surrounding a single mark shaped like an eye. When I touched it, the walls shuddered. My mother's figure stepped forward. "It keeps what it makes," she said. "We tried to leave too." She opened her mouth wider than human jaws could stretch, and a cloud of spores poured out, sparkling in the firelight. They drifted toward me like dust motes. I covered my face, but the spores clung to my skin, sinking in. The whispering in my head grew louder until I could no longer tell my thoughts from theirs. Grow, breathe, root. I don't know where the strength came from, but I slammed the knife into the symbol on the hearth. The blade snapped, yet the mark split open with a sound like thunder. A blast of cold wind tore through the cabin, scattering the spores. The fire flared white, then vanished. When the light died, so did everything else. The cabin was gone. The trees, the whispering, my family, gone. I was lying in a shallow pit of black soil under a pale morning sky. For the first time in days, there was no sound except my breathing. I pushed myself upright, shaking, blinking against the gray dawn. A road cut through the trees a few meters away. A real road. Asphalt. Tire tracks. I walked toward it, barefoot, dizzy, every step heavy. Cars hissed by in the distance. Civilization. A ranger's truck pulled over when he saw me. He jumped out, wrapped me in a blanket, radioed for help. His face was kind, real, human. "It's okay," he said. "You're safe now." Safe. They took me to a hospital. The doctors asked questions, but I couldn't answer most of them. Days blurred together. When they finally released me, I didn't go home. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the wind through pines and smelled the rot of mushrooms. Weeks later, a package arrived with no return address. Inside was my phone, clean, undamaged. The battery still half full. There was one photo on it. A forest clearing, a circle of trees, and at the center, a figure half buried in soil. My face. I threw the phone into the river that night. But when I came home, it was on my table again, screen glowing softly. New message. "We grew another you." That was the last message it ever sent. But sometimes, when the wind moves just right, I still hear that soft two-note whistle outside my window. I tell myself it's only wind, only memory. Yet, every morning, the line of trees behind my house looks a little closer. And beneath the roots, something is breathing in rhythm with my own.